Now, U.S. President Donald Trump, whose travel ban order on 7 Muslim nations lost a legal battle at an appeals court, is now weighing in on a new executive measure.
You spoke about you're going to win this court battle against the immigration and travel ban.
We'll win that battle.
You also talk about
the unfortunate part is it takes time statutorily, so it takes a little time. We'll win that battle. But we also have a lot of other options, including just filing a brand new order on Monday.
Are you planning to do that? Is that your plan?
Could very well be. But I'd like to keep you, I'd like to surprise you. We need speed for reasons of security, so it could very well be that we do that.
Now, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One the new order could be issued as soon as Monday or Tuesday. He said that any new order would pretty much be similar to the one whose final outcome will be determined by the Supreme Court. Earlier on Friday at a joint presser with a visiting Japanese Prime Minister, Trump spoke of fresh measures to keep the U.S. safe against threats. Developments came after a U.S. appeals court rejected the government's request to restore the travel ban put on hold last week by a federal judge. And now we're going to swing over to Bristol. We're joined by Mr. Tony Gosling, investigative journalist. Hello, Tony, and thanks for joining us on the program again. Now, Donald Trump has seen worldwide protests, condemnation from world leaders and even U.S. politicians over this travel ban. He's seen it shot down in the courts now twice, and now he still wants to reconstitute and reissue it. Your take on all this?
Well, look, the joke going around here in Bristol on the streets tonight is that he's got to rewrite this travel ban because he missed Saudi Arabia and Israel off the list. But look, to be honest about Trump, this migrant ban, he did say that he was going to do it in his campaign election, so it's an election promise. There's a lot of people very upset that he's doing it, but it is exactly what he was elected to do in his campaign. He's avoiding the Supreme Court, it seems. I think it looks like it was going to go to the Supreme Court, but he doesn't want it to go to the Supreme Court. He's obviously got his spies in there who are telling him it probably won't go through. Remembering, of course, that the justices there are mainly Obama supporting or Democrat-appointed justices. So he's got a bit of a problem, hasn't he, with the Supreme Court? Also, of course, that more seriously, the irony is that actually the US has been supporting terrorism as much as anybody else on the planet. They like to point the finger elsewhere, but look at the example of the MEK terrorist organization, which the United States took off the terror list a few years ago. This is a group which has been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people, particularly in Iran, and the evidence is that it's been being trained by the Israelis. So we've got a very, shall we say, wrong-headed executive order here, and the US should really be looking at its own record of terrorism rather than pointing the finger elsewhere.
And how would you think you would have to rewrite it for it to somehow, circumvent what's taking place in the courts right now that might actually end up before the Supreme Court?
Well, look, it's a new administration. There's a lot of people who are not familiar with government, a lot of lawyers. And I would suggest the problem here is that they've got some rookie lawyers who aren't very good at drafting executive orders. And that's probably the main reason why this is not going through. Obviously, there's a lot of political opposition. And as I said, with democratically appointed Supreme Court judges will also be opposing it. But look, the whole policy is flawed. Actually, I think Britain and the United States were much more culpable for starting the civil war in Syria by arming the opposition back in 2011. We had Roland Dumas, the French foreign minister, saying this on French television a few years ago. The reality, I think, is the terrorists are going the other way. They're going from the West into places like Syria. So, look, if he wants to be serious about stopping terrorists coming to the United States, first of all, they should fess up and say, look, we shouldn't have created this civil war in the first place. Everybody in the world knows, apart from people who just listen to the mainstream media here in the West, that it was an advancement of the regime change policy, like in Libya, into Syria. Also, a wider plan to disrupt the Middle East, and particularly the Levant, to break it up, balkanize it to of Israel, so Israel can expand. And Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, US Lieutenant Colonel, actually produced a map in June 2006 which shows the Arabian Peninsula and the Levant broken up into 17 different states. That's what they're planning, and it's all for the benefit of the Israelis. And the sooner that Donald Trump realizes that, the better.